Hello again, everyone. I'm Bill Rowland, and welcome to another edition of Pat's Chat, brought to you by Ortho Virginia. Today, it's our pleasure to be joined by one of the assistant coaches of the men's basketball team, Maurice Joseph. And, Coach, I guess officially welcome to Mason, although you've been here for a while. With everything going on with COVID and everything else, we really haven't been able to sit down and get to know you. So this is a great opportunity for us. So first off, thank you for your time. And I guess the second thing is you were a head coach at GW. You went up to Fairleigh Dickinson, was an assistant there.
Yep.
What brought you back to the Northern Virginia, D.C. area to become an assistant here with this program?
Well, first of all, I love the area. I think the DMV has the, little bias now because I've been here for a decade, but the best high school basketball, best AAU basketball in the country. So in terms of recruiting ground, being able to kind of have this area as a feather in your cap from a recruiting standpoint is vital in your coaching career, just because you're around so many great players and great coaches from all across the DMV. So that in itself was professionally a great piece of it. Then personally, my wife is from the area, born and raised in Maryland. So her family's here, my family's here. So it was a no-brainer to be able to come back. And the third thing was my relationship with Coach Paulson. He and I got to know each other over the years, competing against each other in the A-10, and became close, colleagues and all that kind of stuff in the A-10. So when the opening happened and he and I spoke and talked about the vision he had for the program and for the position, it all kind of just clicked. So I was fortunate that he was gracious enough to hire me onto his staff, and I'm fired up to be here in Patriot Nation.
It's interesting because, one, you're from Montreal, so you're Canadian. We also have Bryson Johnson, an assistant, who's from Canada as well.
Yep.
Odd, I would not say odd, but probably unusual to have one Canadian assistant, but to have two. You guys kind of have that little connection there. Is there, some secret winks and nods and everything that only Canadians know that you guys can pull off? Or, I mean, how cool is it to have somebody who kind of understands Canadian basketball a little bit, as you do as well?
Oh, it's been really cool. There aren't many. There's only a handful of Canadian coaches in the NCAA altogether, Division I, II, and III. So to have two on one staff is truly remarkable. He's a really bright guy, really intelligent coach, teaches the game really well. Obviously was a tremendous player at Bucknell and still holds Patriot League records and all that. So his playing pedigree speaks for itself as well. But to have another Canadian on staff and to be able to talk about, Drake and Celine Dion and all things Canada has been great. I've typically been the one Canadian on staff, and everybody makes fun of Canada. It's kind of like the thing that people do. But now that we have two guys on staff, I have some reinforcements, so we can team up on some guys. But it's been great to get to know him a little better and to have another Canadian on staff. It's really cool.
Is there a difference, and this maybe get into some minutia here, but is there a difference? You think about the European game, kind of wide open, free flowing. The U.S. game, people talk about it's more of a power game, although that's starting to change a little bit. Is there a particular style that Canadian basketball is maybe known for, or is coached there in Canada that may be different than in the United States that people aren't aware of?
Yeah, you know what? It's someone's asked me that question before. My answer to him was it's a little bit of a hybrid. So the athleticism and the playmaking ability and the dynamic quickness, speed, and all that kind of stuff that American guards and the American game has and has always had across time is kind of is there's that piece of it. But because the athleticism and the quickness and all those things aren't there at the same level in Canada, we've adopted a more cognitive game in essence, spacing and screening and cutting and all that kind of stuff, skilled positions, skilled big positions. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. We don't have quite the athletes that the U.S. has, but we do have a lot of cognitive guys who are learning the game. And now coaches in Canada are learning the game and going to clinics at a much earlier level. So the teaching at the grassroots level has increased, from when I was a kid has increased exponentially, so now kids are learning how to play the game at a much earlier age. And that's increased the level of basketball, the level of cognitive basketball in the country. So I would say it's a little bit of a hybrid. We don't quite have the athletes overall that America has, but we've kind of adopted some European tactics, some European schemes and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of got our own deal now.
Can you give me your top 5 Canadian players? And does your brother make that list?
My brother definitely makes that list. Top 5 Canadian players, the GOAT's got to be Steve Nash. After that, I got to go with, let's go Bryson Johnson, Chris Joseph, Maurice Joseph, and Dadzi Haidara. How about that?
There you go. That works. That works. Now, we talked a little bit off the air. You're not a big hockey fan, but of course you root for the Montreal Canadiens because you have to.
Oh, have to, yeah. Have to.
Which, in your mind, which is the harder sport? Would it be ice hockey or curling, which is another huge Canadian sport up there?
Well, let me preface this answer by saying I've never curled a day in my life. People have asked me this. People think because I'm from Canada, I'm some curling pro. I've never curled in my life. Have played ice hockey though, so I can't speak to playing ice hockey. If you're not a proficient skater, and you kind of, it's hard to be to just pick up ice skates and go play ice hockey. If you can't really skate well, it's going to be really hard for you to be serviceable in that sport. As for curling, I hear it's difficult. I don't know what the guys sweeping the ice are doing. I guess the things are picking up speed. I'm not a curling guy, so I'll go with ice hockey as a tougher sport.
Probably a fair assessment. All right, Tim Hortons, Dunkin' Donuts, or Krispy Kreme. Now you've been in the DC area a while, so I don't know if you've shied away from Tim Hortons, but I kind of have an idea where this is going.
That's not even a debate. Timmy's all day, every day. That's not even a debate.
What makes them so good?
Yeah, Timmy's. Next question.
What makes them so good?
Well, the Timbits, fresh Timbits in the morning is one of the greatest things in the world. I don't know if anybody's going to be listening to this, ever been to Tim Hortons, ever had Timbits, but it's basically the equivalent of Munchkins from Dunkin' Donuts. And those are just phenomenal. The coffee is phenomenal. And the overall Canadianness of Tim Hortons can be understated. So it's a great spot. Anytime I'm traveling in America and I see a Tim Hortons in the airport, typically in the Northeast, they got a couple. I always get fired up, always stack up on some Timbits and get some Timmys, man. But it's I'm Canadian, so I have to answer that way. But
there you go.
Timmy's all the way.
There you go. So you're a bit of a food guy. You've been in the DC area, as you mentioned, a long time. Yeah. Talk to me about some of the other restaurants, either high end or dive spots or whatever, that when you get a chance, obviously in the environment right now, it's hard to go and eat inside a restaurant. But when all this is over with and Coach Joseph can get back and wants to go out and have a nice meal, where are you hitting up?
Well, during the pandemic, I've been, my wife and I have been trying to support local businesses, trying to support Black businesses. So one of the restaurants that I love in DC is Teddy's Roti Shop. So if you like Caribbean food, that's a go-to spot in DC. So that's one of my favorites. In this area now, and I've been in Fairfax for a little bit, Caribbean Corner has been one of my go-tos. I really like that spot for Caribbean food. A couple people told me that I had to go to Taco Bamba, and they did not disappoint. Taco Bamba over here on Braddock Road is phenomenal. So I like that spot a lot. But in DC, there's so many great restaurants. Founding Farmers, Farmers Fishers Bakers are two of my favorites. Florida Ave Grill, one of the oldest soul food restaurants in the country, is in DC. Florida Ave Grill. There's another soul food spot called Oohs and Ahs in DC, which serves some of the best wings and mac and cheese that you'll find anywhere. And so there's so many great spots. So as a foodie, it is great to be in DC with so many different restaurants, so many different types of food. But I have been trying to support local businesses and Black businesses, so it's allowed me to kind of visit some new spots and find some new dining areas.
We're celebrating the 15th anniversary of the 2006 Final Four team, and I know you kind of have a little bit of a connection to that team. You were on the Michigan State team that they upset in the first round. Now, you're only a freshman, so you didn't play a ton of minutes, but what do you remember, or what was the conversation like for you guys when that game was done and you realized you'd been upset? It was a team that had been in the Final Four the year before under Tom Izzo, but looking back on it, and then you watched the guys that beat you make that run, was it a little bit more respect of, okay, this wasn't, we got upset, but these guys are legit. They can play a little bit.
Yeah, to be honest, we looking back, we probably went into the game a little bit more confident and cocky than we should have been, to be completely honest. The talk was the second round matchup between us and North Carolina, who was also in Dayton, Ohio, in that bracket. So didn't know much about George Mason. Hadn't heard a great deal about him going into the game. We knew they had some older, experienced players, and they were tough. In the NCAA tournament, everybody's good and all that kind of stuff. But the game started, and they played really hard, really well coached, really well prepared. They're hitting shots. Jai Lewis was setting screens and knocking people's heads off, and Lamar Butler was doing a great job. And so across the board, they had really talented players, and they're older and experienced. So they weren't afraid of the moment. They were. You can tell they'd been well coached, and we underestimated them a little bit and didn't play to our potential. We had some really talented players in Shannon Brown and Maurice Ager and Paul Davis, NBA guys, and they came out and they shocked us. And I'll never forget that. Going back into the locker room, we're all disappointed, and we heard some North Carolina fans excited that Michigan State lost, that they were going to go on to be able to beat George Mason easily and have a kind of a free ride to the Sweet 16. And sure enough, that didn't happen. So George Mason was for real. We seeing them go on the run that they went on solidified that. We knew they were good. We didn't know they were Final Four good, but they proved to the world that mid-major basketball. When you're well coached and prepared and tough, and you have guys who are just kind of connected and unified, you can really go on great runs. And that's kind of the beauty and the magic of March Madness. And they certainly put a stamp on that team, put a stamp on George Mason basketball for the rest. We're still talking about it 15 years later. So so it's bittersweet that I go into EBA every day and I see the Final Four banner, and I'm reminded of my post-game locker room every time I see it. But it's good to be here in Mason. Good to be in a program with that kind of tradition and history. But yeah, a little bittersweet. It does sting a little bit still.
Coach, let me ask you last thing. You've been a head coach running your own program. You're back as an assistant now. Do you feel like the time that you spent as the head coach at GW, that you maybe understand a little bit more the role of an assistant and what you need to provide, to Coach Paulson and what he expects of you? Obviously, the goal is to get back to being a head coach of your own program again. But do you look at this time as a way to refine what you do as an assistant that will help you become a better head coach down the road? Everybody's trying to learn and get better no matter what job that they're doing. But what about being a former head coach helps you in this position that you're in now?
Oh, no question. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I certainly don't have all the answers, and I never want to. I want to be able to continuously grow within this profession and this craft. But my experience as a head coach and understanding what the day-to-days are, I can have firsthand experience of what Coach Paulson is going through. So if there's things that I can take off his plate so that he can focus on practice planning or focus on recruiting or focus on game prep or whatever it might be, I understand kind of what the day-to-day stressors are. So for me, not only am I doing my own recruiting and scouting and do all the stuff that I have to do, but now I understand kind of what he's going through based on what's happening within our program. So I can kind of relate and be like, hey, how are you doing with this? Can I take this off your plate? Can I do this for you? And I can serve as a leader, serve as an assistant in a more relatable and empathetic manner, because there is a lot that's being thrown at you as a head coach, and he does a great job of handling all those things. But sometimes it gets overwhelming. There's a lot coming from different directions, and he has to wear a lot of hats within the program, as all head coaches do. So now my understanding of that, having dealt with it, allows me to be able to little bit more empathetic, and kind of take some stuff off his plate. So as I continue to get better at my own craft and become a better coach and better leader myself, I can understand what he's going through. And my goal is just to kind of help him run the program by making his job as easy as possible. So it's one thing that Coach Izzo told me when I became a head coach, that assistants have 100% of the answers, but take 0% of the responsibility. And you don't really understand that until you become a head coach, because assistants, we have all the ideas and all the this we want to do and tweaks and wrinkles and all that, but it's not the same when you move over 6 inches to the front of the bench. So I understand that, and my goal is just to serve him in any way that I can, so that he can focus on what's the main thing, which is running our program, recruiting, making sure that we're doing whatever we need to do as a program to move forward.
That's assistant coach Maurice Joseph of your George Mason Patriots. Coach, thank you for the time. This has been Pat's Chat, brought to you by Ortho Virginia.